There are those stories that have never been told, and there are those that should never be told. It's time to huddle up and begin our journey into a world of fantasy and the unknown with Appalachian storyteller Tracy Turner.
I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty at all. I'm sitting here in this cell, clapped in irons, waiting to be hanged in the morning. And I don't care about that neither. It all started on the day I signed on to a square rigger that was bound for the New World. The crew told me that on the last voyage they'd run into the doldrums. Now, the doldrums is a place out in the middle of the ocean where there ain't no wind. The sea's like glass in every direction. The sails hang like wilted lettuce in the yardarms, and the sun is so hot you can hardly breathe. It's not a very large area, but you can't sail out of it either. Well, on the day we were to set sail, I heard the sound of horse hoofs up on deck. I run up on deck, and there they were, 30 of them. I'd never seen such gorgeous creatures in all my life. Their faces were beautiful, and their coats were shining. Their movements was just like a song it was. Well, I run straight away to the first mate, and I asked him if I could be in charge. And he said, okay, right. So we marched them on board, down into the hold and into their stalls, and then we set sail. All during the voyage, I took care of them. I watered them and fed them and cleaned out their stalls, put fresh straw around so they'd be comfy too, and every day I'd rub down their legs. You see, horses were born to run, and if they can't move about, they gets awful jittery. So I'd rub down their legs every day. They seemed to like that, they did. Oh, each one of them had his own special way about him, and I named them all. There was Blackie, Brownie, Yardum, and Master Duke, and so on. I used to steal sugar out of the galley. There was a little brown and white pinto I'd call Cloudsy. He used to pick it right out of my pocket, he did. Oh, I loved them all. But there was two of them I think I was a little partial to. There was a beautiful mare. I called her Jessica. She used to shake her head at me every time I walked by. And then there was a very noble-looking gentleman with a white blaze down his face. I called him Eye, because he looked me right in the eye whenever I talked to him. And he'd call to me, too, during the day. He'd go, woo, woo, and I'd say, now settle down, Eye boy, it's all right. I'm right here. Oh, we had a lovely time down there in the hold, we did. One afternoon, the storm clouds started rolling in, and the sea turned to white caps by nightfall. We was in the middle of a ferocious storm, we were. We was being banged back and forth down there in the hold, and my horses was terribly frightened. They was stamping about and crying out and pulling on their ties. And I went around to each one of them, and I petted them down and called them by name. And I'd sing songs to them, body songs, I'm afraid they were, the kind I'd learned in the taverns. Well, they didn't listen to the words, but they loved the tunes. And I calmed them down. Right there in the middle of the storm, I calmed them down. Well, they trusted me after that. They knew if I was there, they'd be all right. And I was always there. I spent all my time in the hold. Well, 8 weeks out, we ran into the doldrums. The ship come to a standstill, and the sails hung slack. Late in the afternoon, the captain ordered me to bring my horses up on deck, and I marched them up. Oh, they were so happy to be out in the fresh air, they were. They was prancing about and breathing deep. Then we rigged up a crane and pushed it over the side, and one by one we lowered each one of me gentle friends down into the water. They was strung out in 2 lines, 15 and 15 of them tied to the bow of the ship. The captain ordered me out in a longboat, and we rowed ahead with them. I was so happy for them. They seemed to be enjoying the cool water. When we got out ahead of them, the first mate ordered me to call to Jessica and I, who were the leaders. When they heard me voice, they started swimming toward me, and all together the horses began to pull that great ship forward. We rode ahead of them all night long. I held up a lantern so me beauty could see me, and they pulled the great ship slowly and steadily through the black still water. Oh, I wish you could have been there. They were magnificent to see. Their heads were held high, and their eyes were shining, and their ears were erect as they trotted slowly and proudly through the water. They swam all night. Then, in the morning, it turned light in the horizon, and the sun peeped up, and they was still going strong. I was so proud of me horses. That's the girl, Jessica. Good boy, I, me proud beauty. And the ship moved on. Late in the morning, I could see they was growing tired and thirsty, too. I turned to say something to the first mate, but just then a shout rang out from the ship, and we looked back and the sails was beginning to billow. I breathed a sigh of relief. The wind had come up. We was out of the doldrums. We rowed back to the ship, and as I climbed on board, the captain said, "Good job, lad." Right there in front of the whole crew he did. And I said, "Well, thank you, sir, but it was me horses that done the work." We hauled up the longboat, and I pushed the crane over to begin picking up me horses who was milling about there, when suddenly the captain sang out, "Cut the lines! Make full sail! We've got time to make up!" Someone picked up a hatchet and cut the line to me horses, and we started moving forward. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The men was running around like crazy trying to get all the sails to the wind, but nobody was paying attention to me horses. I went forward and shouted at the captain. The first mate jumped in front of me and ordered the master-at-arms to throw me off the bridge. He hit me, knocked me down, and then pulled out his pistol and pointed it at me and started counting. Well, I jumped up and I ran back to the stern. My horses was already drifting far back. They was swimming, trying to keep up, but they were so tired they were losing fast. The sea had begun its giant swells again, and I'd see their heads at the head of a wave, and then they'd disappear into the trough and then reappear at the crest of another wave. And each time their heads got smaller and smaller, and then they was gone. I just stood there at the stern, gazing into the empty sea. Suddenly, way far back, I saw a head at the crest of a wave. It was I. He was still swimming strong, and he called to me. "Whoa." And then he was gone. I stood there at the stern for the rest of the day, just staring at the empty sea. When nighttime came, I leaned over, picked up a hatchet that was used to cut the lines to me horses, and began making me way forward to the captain's quarters. I opened the door and peered in. All the officers were sitting around a candlelit table having dinner, they were. They all turned and stared at me. It was unheard of for a common seaman to come into the captain's quarters, and he said, "Here now, what's this?" I walked up to him and I swung the hatchet and split his head open down to his chin. Then I swung at the first mate and near took his head off. Then I buried the hatchet deep in the master-at-arms' chest. There was blood and gore everywhere. No one moved, and I was glad for what I'd done. So now, here I sit in this cell, waiting to be hanged in the morning. I haven't slept a wink since then. Not because of what I done to the captain, but because I still hear me beauties calling to me over the waves.
From the edge of the imagination, you've been listening to Appalachian storyteller and author Tracy Turner.